Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host Jason Knight, and on this week's episode, The Dad Test, we talk entrepreneurship. How does someone go from studying economics to software development? How does someone go from software development into founding a business and using some of those fantastic product principles that we all know and love? How is it working on an MVP when your dad's the first customer? When will we see our guest on the stock exchange making millions? For answers to all these questions and more, please join us on One Night in Product. So my guest tonight is Matt Wilkinson. Matt's a software developer turned company founder, living out of his suitcase in the UAE. Founder of Zenquiries, the best support solution for Shopify. His LinkedIn profile tells, I ship things. Hi Matt, how are you doing today?
Hey Jason, it's nice to talk to you on this podcast. Thank you for interviewing me.
No problem. I hope it's as good for you as it is for me.
Yeah.
So before we get into Zenquiries and kind of what the company's doing, tell me a bit about your background. I understand that you started out as a developer. You've got an MSc in computer science. So tell me a little bit about your background as a developer and the types of things you were doing.
Yeah, my background as a developer, you're right. I did an MSc in computer science. Actually, before that, I did an undergraduate in economics. And I just graduated in 2008 in a financial crisis, and I suddenly realized I couldn't get any jobs as an economist at that time. So I was teaching myself programming, and I quickly figured out that actually I could definitely get a job as a programmer much easier than an economist. So I reskilled and actually taught myself programming for iPhone apps as well, which was a bit different at the time because it was still a bit unclear whether iPhone programming would be so successful. But by the time I'd finished my MSc, I was already quite proficient in programming mobile apps and quickly found jobs all over the place. So, yeah.
So that's a bit of a leap, though, kind of going from the kind of the economics into. I mean, I know you say you were self-taught, but like, did you do any kind of computer stuff before that, or was it literally at that point that you started getting interested in this stuff?
Yeah, I was always really interested in computers. In fact, my dad's a programmer himself. I just didn't study it in my undergraduate, and so I was like always sort of playing around with computers, did a little bit of programming on the side, but nothing really serious. And I loved Apple. I really liked the Macs. I had a PowerBook G4, and listening to Steve Jobs was always like really exciting when he would give the WWDC keynotes. So yeah, and that's really why I went into the iPhone programming world, because of the Mac.
So obviously coming from that background and as you say, kind of having this pick of all these different types of job that you can get as a developer, you then decided to start a company, which is Zenquiries. So what made you decide to start a company? I mean, you just spoke about Steve Jobs. I don't know if you found him an influence or if there are other kind of key people, but what made you take that leap?
I think the key thing is I never felt comfortable just being a developer. I love programming, but I always felt like I was missing out on the bigger picture of things, which was the product development side, like coming up with an idea, figuring out the user interface, figuring out what customers need and what works better. All these things, they weren't being really exposed to me just as a software engineer. I would see things more on the side of, here's what we've got to build it really well, and make sure it doesn't have any bugs, which is all really interesting and fascinating. Like, building good quality software is a real challenge and there's a lot to learn in it. But after a while, because I've been doing it now for like nearly 10 years, I think, I just started to get a little bit like, I want to do more. So, yeah.
So you've almost become like that. Is that kind of product manager's journey from developer to product manager? I mean, obviously you're not just a product manager because you're also running the entire company, but it's that kind of product hero's journey in a way.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've got to do next with Zenquiries is to figure out how to delegate things. Yeah, because it can't just be me, because currently, it mostly is. So I'm building stuff and doing I do hire people for the designs and the work on the branding and stuff, but a lot of it is me, and I want to try to figure out how to grow a team as well, which will be the next challenge.
Yeah, so that's the whole kind of almost then moving into how to build a company culture and stuff like that, which I guess you don't really have to worry about at the moment since you're still kind of very foundational, but it's something that you're going to need to think about as you kind of push out.
Yeah. First one, need to get customers. I mean, I feel like my goal right now, build a product that can pay for itself, run, because it costs money to run Zenquiries. It costs my time. So it needs to make some money, and so that's what I'm going to try and solve next.
Okay, and you've moved and set up in the UAE. So I understand from previous discussions and interviews I've listened to with other people that the UAE is actually a pretty welcoming place for sort of startups, and there's a lot of support from the government. Is that true? Has that been really helpful for you over there?
Well, I would say that's definitely a possibility. I haven't seen that just yet myself, but I'm keen to explore it. Yeah, there is. I mean, the UAE is trying to grow into digital startups and digital businesses, and I can see that. So we'll see how it goes.
Have you been looking at a talent pool over there already? Is there like quite a good sort of startup talent scene over there, or again, is that something that you've not yet needed to look at?
I haven't looked at it in detail, but I do know that there are startups here, particularly in the kind of finance world. I think there's a lot of like fintech startups. I haven't seen any that I know of that are in customer support and e-commerce, but maybe I could be the first. Who knows? So
there you go. Sort of first mover advantage.
Yeah,
but be careful of the fast followers. So, what gave you the idea for Zenquiries in the first place? I mean, how did you start down the kind of customer service, customer inquiry route? Was that something that you were passionate about before? Is it something that came to you in a dream? I mean, how did that start?
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a funny one, isn't it? Basically, it actually started with a requirement from my dad, who's a watch repairer, and he deals with a lot of. I mean, it's a side hobby for him. It's not his main job. So he works with people all around the world repairing watches, a specific type of watch, a Seiko watch movement, and just organizing his conversations in a way that worked with his repair process was the goal of Zenquiries. So I figured, let's build something with a kind of a board that let him move tickets across with different states of the repair process. And then you could click on a ticket and then see the conversation. And that conversation was mostly done through email. So it had to integrate with his inbox. And that was like MVP of Zenquiries. And then basically later on, I joined a co-working space in Bulgaria. And I lived there for a while, and I got in contact with a lot of people who were actually selling things online through like drop shipping and Shopify, Amazon. A lot of people were being amazingly successful on these platforms, and I just spoke to a couple of guys, and they said, "Yeah, hey, this Zenquiries thing could be useful for us, so why not integrate it with Shopify?" And that's how the next step of Zenquiries started. We're building a support solution for e-commerce on Shopify.
Excellent. So how long did it take you to set that original MVP up when you were just working with your dad? Was that pretty quick, or did it take a while? Or
Yeah, it actually took way longer than like I originally thought it would do. I thought it would just take a couple of months and then boom, build. But because like my tech experience wasn't fully aligned with what we were building, I had to learn like a whole new bunch of technologies because I was mostly a mobile developer, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
So the tech stack on that was like way different to what I was used to now building on Zenquiries. So I learned like Golang on the back end, front end is all like React. And of course, when I originally built it, it was just terrible code, like really hacked together, needed a lot of refactoring, rebuilding. And I think it took about 12 months to fully ship like something that was respectable enough to like properly use. Yeah.
Was that just for your dad at that point, or had you already spoken to these other people and the other people that?
Yeah, for my father, it was actually probably about 6 months, I think, to build that. Yeah, and he was using it for his communications and orders. And then we basically went through like more iterations afterwards to figure out the UI and how to build a better product.
And so that was after you'd spoken to these people in Bulgaria and started to have these additional ideas about maybe taking it on, or?
Yeah, that happened around December in 2019. It was version 1 on Shopify. So I think it started in February 2019 is when I first like coded on Zenquiries, and then about 4 or 5 months later, it was ready for sort of beta with Dad, and then December at the end of the year, ready for Shopify people.
Nice. And is it just Shopify you're concentrating on now, or do you also have integrations with other e-commerce platforms as well?
Right. So I'm going to focus 100% on Shopify for probably the next 6 months, I think. Get that like really, really good integration with Shopify. And we've like, I do know that a couple of people that I'm speaking to sell on Amazon, and they actually have stores simultaneously on Shopify and Amazon. So I wasn't aware that people would sell like this, but it actually makes loads of sense. You know, you'd sell things on multiple platforms. So having a support solution that would work with the two of them would be really good, because you know you don't want your communications coming through one thing and then another thing for a different channel, and it makes sense to integrate them all together.
Yeah, it makes sense, almost like a one platform to rule them all at some point. But this is an interesting thing, right? Because obviously you've come from the development background, you've spent a lot of time building the platform and making it as good as you can. But now you've got to, I think you touched on it earlier, now you've got to go and sell it, right?
Yep.
And is that something that comes naturally to you? Is that something that you're having to learn on the job? How are you going around, for example, or how are you going about actually running a company and kind of marketing a product?
Yeah. So I think I'm at the stage now where it's a bit like eating glass and staring into the abyss. So
that sounds fantastic.
Selling things and marketing, these are all like completely alien to me. I don't know how to do it, but yeah, I'm learning on the job. And publishing, I started with like a little like products blog where I do like news updates, trying to share it on LinkedIn, try and reach out to people on all the platforms I can. I'm trying to spend as much time as I can on the product side and listening to customers. I think that's probably the most important thing. And the people, well, not customers, users, the users I have, listening to what their concerns are and building solutions that meet their needs is like 90% of my effort. But I'm spending a bit of time on the marketing side as well.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at your site now and looking at your pricing plans, and obviously you've got you're kind of going for a freemium model as far as I see, and you kind of have your forever free plan, which I guess you got a bunch of people on now.
Yep.
And then presumably upselling as usage increases. Is that, have you got people moving up through the tiers yet, or is it still very much about that kind of expansion and getting the reach?
Yeah, no one's paying for Zenquiries currently. Everyone's on the free tier. But yeah, the goal for me is to make sure that users are happy with Zenquiries and it's solving their needs, and I'm providing value for them. So as long as I can see that value is provided from my side, and then I'm happy. So when it reaches a threshold of like, I've got so many users, I can't deal with them all being free. We need to make sure that like someone's paying for this, then I'll do it. And we'll build some tools into Zenquiries, like basically, I haven't got this currently yet, but build some sort of little dashboard that like tells you how many conversations you're having, because the pricing is all based on how many conversations you've got. So if you're on like a few conversations a month, then it's free. But once you start like hitting 200 odd conversations, then you'll go to the paid plan because you're a heavy user of Zenquiries.
And obviously, Well, my assumption is with kind of a Shopify user base that you're kind of looking at the kind of small to medium business type market. Is that your core target, or
Yeah.
I mean, are you looking to have like enterprise features at some point, or is that kind of still to TBC?
Yeah, I think right now is a really interesting time to launch a support solution for Shopify, because Shopify itself is really growing. Like if you look at their announcements, they're like absolutely great. And of course, the reason why is because we're all stuck in this pandemic currently. So there's a lot of people who are starting their own businesses online for the first time. And I think Zenquiries really fits in nicely with that, because, you know, we're starting too. And the pricing is very, you know, it's free essentially right now. And we're building a tool which hopefully will try and meet new businesses' demands in our current time.
And when it comes to actually kind of doing your day-to-day work, I mean, obviously it's still very much focused around you and the people that you're getting to help you. But does that literally mean that you kind of just do whatever happens day to day, or have you started to already fall into kind of any kind of process? Do you have any kind of frameworks or anything like that you use, or is it very much just what you think on a particular day? Because obviously you're the main guy.
Yeah, I use an organization tool on GitHub, and so it's both the source repository for Zenquiries, but it's also a place to organize what we're doing and just put like tickets on a board and explore new ideas. A lot of it's actually just trying to figure out like what would bring the most value to users, and then experimenting, figuring out like how it works and those kinds of things. There's no defined process.
Yeah, I guess that'll be for when you start bringing in other people and having, like you said earlier, to sort of delegate and start not doing it all yourself or most of it yourself. So, I mean, when it comes to the other people that you're getting in to help you, is that just a case of getting contractors in sort of for specific tasks, or are you already building a team up around you? I mean, it seems to me kind of maybe a little bit difficult if you're still kind of in that really early free stage to start just making loads of hires. But
yeah,
I also understand that you're kind of very much self-funded at the moment. So, like, I'm assuming that you don't have infinite funds to start bringing in a big team to help you scale.
That's true. Yeah, so for a lot of things that I can't do myself, I'll hire in people, then they're like contractors. So like the logos and the graphics and branding stuff, or any kind of marketing things that I'm trying to learn about, like Facebook Pixel or something like this. I don't have a clue about how to do that, but yeah. Might hire someone to help me with that. And building a team, yeah, I want to do as well. I think I will be trying to do that more once I know that there's a customer base behind Zenquiries, because it's a lot easier to convince people to join Zenquiries once you can say, hey, you know, we're actually making some money. And once I've got that, then I think people will be very, very excited to join Zenquiries, I think. And there'll be there's a huge amount of talent out there that, you know, I really want to be working with some, you know, A-star players, you know, to help me build Zenquiries. So, yeah.
So what are your plans for the future? I mean, obviously you've got to the point now and you've got some sort of early users and getting some good feedback. But obviously, kind of as you just touched on, there's this whole point of, well, you want to scale, you want to start making some money, you want to start getting some paid users on. So what's the kind of next 6 to 12 months look like for you? What are your plans?
Yeah. I think about, well, like the thing I'm looking at, the metric that I'm really keen to improve on is like retention. So the next sort of 12 months is all about like making sure that the people that install Zenquiries stick with Zenquiries. So I think currently about 230 people installed Zenquiries, and I think we've got like about 47 active users currently. So
right.
I don't know what that boils down to, but like
so
if that's
20% or something, right?
Yeah, like 20% retention rate. And really I want to maximize that more and get, a 50% retention rate or something because it's that good of a product. And, probably by the end of the year, I'd imagine having a substantial base of users who are using Zenquiries on an active basis, solving their customer support issues, and then really starting to think about like how to monetize it.
And have you got like other big features that you're currently looking at, or is it very much about kind of steadying what you've got and making sure that that's as solid as it can be?
Definitely the second one as well, but there are some new features too coming. So I'm building integration with Shopify Ping, which allows real-time chat basically. So I figured, I could build my own chat myself, but this is going to take a huge amount of time and a lot of effort. And am I really adding any new value here? And I came to the conclusion, no. So what about if I integrate with other solutions and then provide value on the organization tool that Zenquiries provides? And so Shopify have recently introduced Ping, which is their chat widget that embeds into a store. And this would give, and a lot of our users are using Shopify Ping already, but they also wanted Zenquiries, which I found really interesting. So Ping solves the real-time chat part, but Zenquiries solves the taking the support request into a ticket and tracking it across the process of the support lifecycle. Yeah, building a mobile app as well. So that's coming out very shortly, a native mobile app. Yeah.
Going back to your roots, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like Back to the Future, back to the beginning again, just a different app this time.
Yeah,
it's interesting though because the thing about the Shopify Ping thing, which I'm not big on Shopify, so I'm obviously not seen all of its bells and whistles, but I think it would almost seem to me like a dyed-in-the-wool developer would be that they just build their own thing, because that's the cliche, right? Everyone wants to build their own thing. So I think it's really good and kind of almost showing your sort of journey into product and business that you've taken stock, you've done like a solid build versus buy or build versus integrate journey and just decided not to do that, which I think is interesting because, again, I would have just assumed that you would have built that.
Thanks. Yeah, it was tempting, believe me, because it's a fun technical challenge, but no, I don't want to do it. I'd rather integrate with Shopify Ping.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when I was still sort of developing stuff full time and spending God knows how long just trying to make some like audio recorder for the for a web page or something like that, and basically building and pulling it all together ourselves. And yeah, it took forever. It always had problems. There was always bits that didn't work and platforms that it didn't work on. And yeah, I think it's almost like, is this our USP? No, let's just use someone else's. I think it definitely makes sense. So obviously that covers Zenquiries and some of the stuff that you've been doing so far. But just on the more on the broader level, do you have any advice for any aspiring developers turned entrepreneurs or anyone that's thinking about starting up a business at the moment? Like any kind of nuggets of wisdom from what you've learned so far?
Oh man, yeah. Interesting question. It's difficult because I don't feel like I'm very successful. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe I'm being successful in the fact that I'm trying, but I can't say this from a position of like, hey, made millions of dollars and I'm super successful entrepreneur.
Give it time.
However, I think you got to listen to, if you have this inside you and you feel like I really want to be an entrepreneur and I really want to build a business, then in my opinion, you should listen to that, because it's kind of like, I don't know, life is quite short, right? And I think it's good to live your authentic life and be who you want to be. And some people have this drive more than others. And I found that myself. I really wanted to build a business. It's a big part of me. And so the if you're building a business, it's because you're probably very motivated to do it, and you need a lot of motivation because it's very difficult. It's not easy. It might take you years to build a successful business. It doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a lot of determination.
Yeah, and actually that reminds me then to ask you a question which we kind of touched a little bit on earlier, which is, as a kind of budding entrepreneur and hopefully someone who's going to be very successful in due course, like, who do you look up to in the business kind of world, like previous founders or previous people that have started things and taken them on to success? I mean, you mentioned Steve Jobs, but is there anyone else that you really look up to or has really inspired you?
Yeah. So yeah, Steve Jobs, definitely, when I was growing up, really found him very inspirational. And later on, obviously, I think nowadays it's Elon Musk. He's just such a inspirational guy, very doing things on so many important projects that needed to be built. Electrification of vehicles, going to space, Starlink. It's just crazy, and I think everyone finds that inspirational. And what I like about his story is that it didn't just immediately go from doing all these things. He actually started in a software company. I think PayPal was his real big first break, and then pivoted and built all these other amazing things. So yeah, I have lots of big ideas as well. I mean, not to the extreme that Elon Musk has, but I feel like part of being a business owner is that it gives you the potential to do that. That's why it's really exciting. You can, when you have some capital, you can make that capital be productive and provide value to people. And that value creation mechanism is the exciting part of building businesses.
And I guess the flip side of that is whether you'd want to take everything from Elon Musk's kind of PR catalog, but I guess that's a different discussion. But he's definitely a character, and I don't know if that's something that you'll see or that you see as something that you want to be kind of from a PR perspective. Like, do you want to be that kind of guy that goes out there and effectively from time to time causes controversy, or would you be someone who's more kind of keen to keep it under your hat?
Yeah, I'm not I wouldn't say I'm anywhere similar to Elon Musk, particularly in this regard. I'm not an actively person. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on very much social networks. Yeah, so. But I like many other aspects of Elon Musk for sure. And to be honest, the controversial things he does are usually quite funny, to be honest. So he has a lot of humor, and I find that it's a positive aspect as well as some negative parts of it. But there's more positive than negative.
Well, any news or any publicity is good publicity, right? So things like him smoking the joint on air, and I still remember the smashing of the windows in the car and stuff like that. I just think, anything that makes you remember something is got to be good, right? Unless
true. I agree.
It's actually like a crime. It's just, well, obviously smoking the joint is a crime, but unless it's a crime that he's committing, if he shot someone on stage or something, that would not be so good. But anything that just kind of keeps that energy up and kind of keeps people talking, like the jokes on the people that complain about that, right? Because ultimately he's the one that's still being talked about, and he's the one whose companies are still in the news. So
I know, it's so funny. I think all the stuff with the short selling of Tesla, just absolutely hilarious. I think he did he was selling some red shorts or something, and a flamethrower as well. Brilliant. And the naming of some companies is really funny, like the Boring Company.
What's the coolest thing you ever built, either in Zenquiries or just before that? Like the thing that you look back on and think, that was that was a great thing that I built. That was a thing that I'd put on my CV.
What was the coolest thing I built? I think now.
Well, there are too many cool things, and you can't pick one.
I mean, I feel I've got to say Zenquiries is the coolest thing I built. Like, absolutely, yeah. I mean, just based on the fact that like it's tying. It's the thing that I personally built is it's tying all these different things together. You know, the web, the back end, and the mobile side. And I actually really find the whole process of technically, at least from a technical perspective, communication is quite an interesting thing to solve on the internet. You know, it's sort of like the key thing about human beings is we like to talk. You know, that's why we're on this podcast right now. We're talking on the internet. You know, recording audio. Like these sorts of challenges are really interesting.
No, it's good to kind of build a platform as well, I guess, rather than just a widget or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, then, for spending the time. It's been an interesting chat, and obviously we wish Zenquiries the best in the future. Obviously, we'll keep an eye out, but how can people kind of keep in touch with you or follow you? Are there any places, LinkedIn or other places that they can follow you?
We've got the zenquiries.com website, and also on LinkedIn. Also got Twitter, so you can contact me on Twitter. I don't use it that much, but I'm there. So yeah.
There he is saying that he's not. You're saying you're not on social media, and you start reeling it all off. Excellent. Okay, well, I'll put the links in the description of the episode, and obviously people can reach out if they're interested in following your journey. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Thanks for listening as always. If you like this episode, we've got loads more covering a variety of topics that should be interesting to you as well, including technology, product management, product leadership, UX, diversity in tech, and much more. Feel free to shoot over to the podcast app of your choice and take a look and see if there's anything that takes your fancy. I'd also love it if you subscribed, rated, reviewed, and all that other good social proof stuff that we all know and love. Thanks very much.